What if he made you stay away from me before we even got to know each other? I'd like to believe that we would still eventually have met and would have still become friends. I don't know. It didn't seem like there were that many other kids our age in this area, especially living that close to us. So I find that very, very unlikely. His voice cracked as he forced himself to speak through the tears that began to fall in earnest. He did everything he could to say it, but the words were barely a whisper. Vaughn, you were the best thing about coming here. Thanks, man. Cove was honestly terrified over the idea that there was a chance the two of you might not have what you do. You stepped forward and rested a hand on his shoulder. You hugged him. You smiled reassuringly. You went to, no, I'm gonna hug him. Cove readily accepted the embrace. He wrapped his arms around you in return. The grip was firm. I'm really glad we got to be friends. Please don't cry. Hey, don't worry about it, all right? You didn't need to say anything. I wouldn't have let anything your dad or anyone else did mess things up. Oh. I'm really glad we got to be friends. Please don't cry. Hey, don't worry about it, all right? You didn't need to say anything. I'm really glad we got to be friends. His features crumpled at your words. You couldn't tell exactly what his expression was, but it seemed a mix between relief and sorrow. He sniffled. Me too. You remained like that for just a little while. Then he scrubbed his eyes with the back of his one hand. His gaze turned away from you, growing distant. He's like that with my mom too. The anger he had begun to release bubbled back to the surface. Dad wants to make people happy, but he doesn't. The words landed scathingly hard. You were certain it'd crush Mr. Holden if you heard them. You'd never know much about his parents' relationship, but you thought you understood it a bit better now. I disagree with Cove. I'm supporting him, but I disagree with him because I can count on several occasions throughout this game so far where Mr. Holden was very successful at making people happy. Very successful making people happy. I'm sure if we were still back in that apartment having some of that yummy, spicy, sizzling dinner, he would have been making me very happy as well. I'm pretty confident that that'd be the case. So I think Cove is obviously exaggerating. And he probably doesn't really mean half of the things he's saying right now because he's so angry. So I'm just going to politely disagree and be like, I'm going to support you, but I'm not going to say anything on that topic because I think your dad he's a flawed man, but overall I think he's cool. But again, he's not my dad. I'm really sorry. You don't actually mean what you're saying. Do you hate your dad? I'm here for you. You felt bad that things were so hard for Cove and his dad. You didn't say anything. You don't actually mean what you're saying. Cove just looked at the ground. As the two of you were stifled by the quiet, a thought came to your mind, abrupt and sudden. What about your fish? I remember that day when it happened. What about your fish? That feels a little too random. I'm not going to change the subject. I feel like the more that we talk about this, the better. Like, I'm not going to skirt it under the rug by suddenly talking about his fish. I want to, now that this is out in the light, I want us to deal with it. Deal with it now so we can move on. I hate, like, getting into a situation like this or an argument and we just, like, save it for later when we can most certainly, like, take care of it right here and right now. That is something that Colin and I do all the time. Like, sometimes you get into arguments and it might be very inconvenient. As long as we have the mental capacity to be able to just deal with it and just talk through it and just work it out. If we have the time to work it out, and sometimes working it out takes an hour at least, because we tend to talk a lot, you know, we tend to say a lot when we're having like issues or like having an argument. But it's so worth just dealing with it and working it out right then and there instead of sweeping it under the rug, because we might not be able to deal with it later. I remember that day when it happened. You ran into the hills behind the house and Mr. Holden waited for you to come back while my mom's checked the park for you. That was when I met you for the first time, after he talked to me about you. Cove lifted his eyes just enough to see you. His head remained low. I remember too, when we first moved to Sunset Bird, I felt like I lost my whole life. Maybe that's why he wanted to help you start a life here so much. His eyebrows scrunched up, and he seemed on the verge of tears once more. It was obvious Cove didn't want to think about his dad that way, but it was also hard not to right now. He must be conflicted over where to go from here. Your dad still needs to stop being so forceful, though. You might feel better than you do. You might feel better than you do if you tried to make up with your dad. You guys really need to learn how to communicate. 100%. I'll be on your side no matter what you do about your dad. You stayed quiet. You guys really need to learn how to communicate. Cove frowned thoughtfully. He didn't say anything, but you had the feeling he was taking what you said into consideration. Here's the thing about, like, relationships, especially romantic relationships, or honestly just any close bonded relationship, is that sometimes because you are that person that is super close to someone and that, you know, they value your opinion and they value what you say and what you believe in. They might not always agree with it, but they at least value it. And there's a lot of power. Like, when you have a tight bond with each other, you have influence on each other, and you can at least affect how they think or make them question the things that they think or believe, for good or ill, you know, for good or for bad. So I firmly feel that as somebody who is if you have a spouse, or if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, or you are best friends with someone, more often than not, if you can tell people what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear, I always lean towards telling people what they need to hear. Telling my best friends or telling my spouse or boyfriend what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. Especially if you are one of the very few people, if the only people for whom, like, the message of what you need to hear would bear any real weight. If that is the case, if you really are the only person or one of the very, very, very few people where such a thing would bear weight, it's almost like you have a responsibility to tell them what they need to hear and not necessarily what they want to hear. I'm going back home. Good. His face was set in determination. Oh, the achievement unlocked, the deal. Number 2. His face was set in determination. There was no way you could tell him to do anything else, even if you wanted to. So you nodded. Let's go back and maybe there might be some food left over. Maybe they didn't eat all of it. Because that's priorities, man. Well, I mean, now that it seems like we're cool, and, I was able to, nudge Cove into the right direction. I did my job. I did what I was supposed to do, So I'm allowed to enjoy the fruits of my labor, which is those delicious, yummy food that's over at the Holden residence. Thanks, Vaughn. I'm sorry about all this. I mean, you were the one that was kind of wronged, so... can I come with you? Because I want some food. No, I'm not waving goodbye! Excuse me! I haven't eaten yet. Okay? I haven't eaten yet. I want my dinner. That's why I clicked into the thing in the first place, is because I wanted to eat. That's why I clicked on that dinner DLC, because I wanted dinner. Can I come with you? Yeah, why wouldn't you go? Oh, I don't know. It's because the game, for whatever reason, thinks that I would, for whatever bizarre reason, would just say goodbye to you. You smiled lightly. Just checking. Cove nodded and headed outside. You followed behind him. Once again, the two of you made your way across the street towards his house. He didn't pause at the door. He just opened it wide and went in. Cove's parents were sitting at the table, their heads bowed in silence between them. They snapped over at the sound of the door, relieved to see Cove return. Mr. Holden stood up so suddenly his chair squealed across the floor. See? I use my superpowers of influence for good, not evil. What can I say? I use it for good.
Cove?
Kyra got out of the chair as well, but less dramatically. How are you feeling, baby? I wanted to talk to you. Yes! Yes! Communicate! Communicate, for goodness sakes. Communicate, communicate. His parents looked over him, their features soft. Cove instead snuck a glance at you. You were glad you could be there here for him. You suddenly felt like you shouldn't be there. Unless any of the three tells me to excuse them, I will. If they tell me that, I would leave. But if they don't say anything, I feel like I should be here for Cove. Besides, I mean, I'm the one who got him over here in the first place. So again, I want to eat. You stared back solidly, hoping you could convey your support with your eyes. It must have worked, because Cove stood up a bit straighter. Cove then fully faced his parents. Mr. Holden stepped forward cautiously, his expression twisting in dismay. I'm so sorry. I should never have done something so stupid. It's okay. It really isn't. It really isn't. That was a bonehead move if ever there was one. I was bribing an actual child, one I'd never even met before that day. Cove almost cracked a smile, though he quickly regained his composure. Then it isn't, but I want things to be okay anyway.
I'm sorry.
Cove, I'm sorry. Kyra placed a hand on Mr. Holden's shoulder. Your dad doesn't believe there's something wrong with you, or that you can't make your own friends. He can explain. I know why Dad did it. He wanted me to be happy, that's all. He didn't think it'd be like this. It was an accident. Kyra sighed heavily. A sad smile appeared on her lips. You're very grown up, Cove. Mr. Holden brought his hands up against his forehead and began to pace around the room. He didn't seem to know what to do with himself. He turned back around to face Cove and Kyra. He looked more solemn than you'd ever seen him. I'm not going to do it again. I haven't done it again. Haven't tried to bribe more people, or haven't continued to step over a line without registering it? Oh, Kyra. This is why I like her. This is why I like her. Both! He let out a heavy breath before shrinking down a little. It was impressive because he was pretty tall. I believe him when he says that. I don't know, but I don't think so. At least I don't remember. I've never have. At least I don't remember, or think I have. Cove's throat bobbed as he swallowed thickly. He looked like he was trying to gather all his courage. When he spoke up, his voice was small, but firm. You invited Mom here. His dad's eyes widened. Cove was ready to have a talk he had put off before. You didn't ask me if I wanted things to be like this, with both of you together again for just a little while. Mr. Holden's hand slowly returned to his forehead. He was stunned as if someone had just hit him. I did it again, and I didn't even notice. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just do something right? At least Cove seemed relieved that he was able to say what he felt. I think there's some validation that his dad at least didn't brush it off or didn't deny what the point that Cove made. He actually accepted it and realized it and was like, oh my gosh, I am a piece of work. He knew just how long he'd been holding that in. It was quiet for a long stretch. Mr. Holden had sat down in a chair. His shoulders drooped and his head in his hands. He looked to Cove. He watched his dad and how genuinely he was struggling with what he'd been told. Cove glanced down at the ground, then looked back to his dad. I'm not angry anymore. Slowly, Mr. Holden met his son's eyes. I can try to talk to you about things and what I feel about stuff. I stopped saying that to you since everything happened. I didn't want to talk to you, but you won't have to guess if you know. Mr. Holden broke eye contact at that, shaking his head. My child shouldn't have to take care of me. You shouldn't have to make up for my shortcomings, Cove. I can fix things. I can still change. After having something out of an outburst, Mr. Holden turned his face away and spoke more guardedly. Besides, I'm used to that already. I might not get it right, but not a thing would happen in what's left of this family if I wasn't making the effort. It's always me. What's one more thing to manage? Dad.
I see.
You're right, Cliff. I know. But I don't think Cove wants to take care of you. He just wants to understand. And he wants his dad to understand too. That's what matters, isn't it? It was still as Mr. Holden digested what Kyra said. He stared down at his empty hands held out in front of him. When he looked at Cove again, his tiny tears glimmered in the corners of his eyes. He got up and crossed the room to his son. Cove didn't move or look away as he approached. Mr. Holden set his hands on Cove's shoulder, the touch firm. He furrowed his brows. Bud, you and I are going to talk about every single thought that ever pops into our heads for the rest of your life. He shook Cove forward and back a bit. Tears slipped down Cove's cheeks, but he was smiling. I'm wondering if all of this, like the fact that they were able to come to this understanding and this resolution, I'm wondering if this will affect his relationship with his dad, Cove's relationship with his dad, and vice versa in future ages or future chapters. That would be really cool.
What?
No, I don't want that. Mr. Holden began to smile too. It trembled at the corners, but it was genuine. I'm afraid it's the only way. Kyra chuckled even as she blinked away her own tears. Even as she blinked away her own tears. Mr. Holden turned towards her. You better not be thinking you can get away from this, Kyra. The same is going to apply to you. You can't! He let go of Cove with one hand while he placed his other arm around Cove's shoulders. Then he faced Kyra.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, I can. He continued to talk as he walked in her direction, bringing Cove along with him. Aww. Then, father and son were standing in front of her. Mr. Holden put his other arm around her. Now he had both of them in his arms. If you think the ideas that I actually go with are bad, you two are going to be amazed by the thoughts I decided against all on my own. I can only imagine. Kyra jokingly cringed at the concept. Cove smiled tearfully up at his parents. Thanks, Dad.
I'm so glad.
Thank you, son. But hey, you know what I'm thinking now? Can we eat now, please? Please, Maker's breath, please. Cove, wiping his face with the back of his hand, shook his head. God, no, you're an incomprehensible maniac. Mr. Holden laughed, not disputing her words. I'm thinking we should eat that dinner. Hallelujah. Yes, that's all I need to know. I don't even care what happens next. I'm thinking we should eat that dinner I painstakingly made. It's salvageable, just gotta heat it back up. Kyra sighed in an exaggerated relief. That we can manage, right, Cove? Yeah. Great, we're making progress already.
Well,
Though I don't even know how I'm gonna start making this up to Vaughn. Carrying that secret for all this time must have been quite the burden to bear. I'm wondering what would have. I'm really curious that what would happen if I never brought this up and saved it for when we were adults. I don't know. $20 is not nearly enough for all the hula baloo. I'm not mad about it or anything. It was hard. It was a hard time for your family. Either way, I or we will work on it. Okay. Cove ducked his head and spoke towards you. There was a tiny smile on his face. Do you want to stay for dinner still? Are you kidding me? I'd love to. After all this? Yes! Mr. Holden finally let go of his family. Kyra patted him on the back with a content sigh. You're very good boys. I'm so lucky. Cove shyly rubbed his arm, while Mr. Holden nervously rubbed his neck. Neither could make eye contact out of bashfulness. In that moment, they really did seem like father and son. Cove's family was nice, you thought to yourself. You were glad that you got to come over. That was one of the better ones. That was one of the best ones so far. I love everything about how... Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was very well done. And I am crazy curious how many permutations that could have had, because it felt like we would have gotten, if I didn't say anything, we would have gotten a chance to like have a have a full scene with him and his parents and just talking about, I don't know what subjects we're beginning talking about, but I'm sure it's got some sort of extended, conversation about something. But who knows? We'll see. Okay, so many things to choose from. Let's do it at the mall. Yeah, let's hang out at the mall. I love hanging out at the mall. Oh, wow. Pretty cool. Lee's visit today turned out to be more involved than you expected. After overhearing where the Holden family was going, Lee insisted on seeing Mr. Holden's shop firsthand. Oh, wow, we get to go check out Mr. Holden's shop. Nice. An hour later, and Lee was busy looking at every item on display. Because Cove's dad offered supplies, lessons, and tours, his shop had all the scuba-related stuff you could imagine. Fins, masks, suits, and snorkels. After circling around the shop, you finally stopped and looked at the whole room. This is the first time you've been here, too. It wasn't often that you tagged along to hang out at the shop. You'd spent a lot of time here over the years. I'd like to say I'd probably have spent some time here. You'd spent a lot of time here over the years. The ship was as familiar to you as your own neighborhood. It was practically another extension of home. You were still bursting with excitement. You were in good spirits. This is a pleasant surprise. You felt okay. Not your first choice, but not bad. You were unhappy. Was this really all you were going to do? No, I would say... if I'd been here all the time, I don't know if I would necessarily be bursting with excitement, but I'm in good spirits. I'd be in good spirits. This is a pleasant surprise. You enjoyed showing Lee around the shop. Doing this was better than just telling her about it. Lee was still busy poking through the various wetsuits displayed, so you decided to see what Derek and Cove were doing. Oh yay, we get a Derek scene! Yay! I like Derek a lot. They were too absorbed in their conversation to notice you standing near them, leaning against the counter. You were able to pick up the topic quickly. Yay! My dad told me the new stuff is selling like crazy. Yeah, the material has this new blend with less neuropene. My dad says people are really interested in it. It brought you a smile to your face hearing that the shop is doing well. You decided to keep listening, you decided to join in the conversation, you couldn't resist teasing the boys. I'm gonna join in the conversation. Those wetsuits with the bright colors are probably popular too. I haven't seen many with that style in other places. Right? I like those ones. Maybe. Some of them might be too bright. I don't think the point of scuba diving is drawing a lot of attention to yourself. Cove's got a point. Maybe people just wearing them on the beach. Standing out would help there. Your family could always spot you. Cove smiled at Derek's positivity. Aww, I'm glad that they're so close. But really, there's just so much to think about with the business, it's crazy. No matter how much I come, I still don't think I get it. Cove hummed and nodded in agreement, causing a good-humored laugh from Derek. I thought you only liked the scuba diving part, not the job part. That's just the best part. I think about other things, too.
I gotcha.
Cool. The business side, running it, that's my favorite. Derek's a bit of a businessman. I like that. Out of the corner of your eye, you caught movement, and you realized that Lee was now standing next to you. When your dads retire, do you guys think you're gonna carry on the store? Both sons shrugged in unison.
Well,
there's tons of things I could do. My dad thinks so too. He doesn't want me to plan on working here forever. Cove's gaze fell to the floor. You could see the conflict flashing across his face. I don't know. It's a lot, being the real boss of something and totally in charge. If my moms had their own business, I'd take it over. If my mom's had one, I wouldn't want to take over either. I can't run a business. I wouldn't want to take over someone else's shop either. I want to do my own thing. Then, do you think your dads would let me take over a shop? No matter what you both do, shop or no shop, you'll be amazing. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna be positive. No matter what you both do, shop or no shop, you'll be amazing. Derek smiled in equal parts happiness and bashfulness. He bounced on his feet a bit. Thanks, Vaughn. I'm happy you believe in us. Me too. Cove's parents left the back office and came over, catching your attention. Sorry, kids. It looks like it's gonna be a long one. I know usually others hold the fort down, but I really need to stay here today. I know you just wanted a little visit. It'd be boring getting stuck all day because of me. Kyra can take my car and go back to the neighborhood. Cove and Derek gave him an understanding look. Mr. Holden crossed his arms and flashed you all a big smile, trying to lift the mood. The one condition is that someone has to remember to come back for me later. You don't get to strand me here, no matter how funny that might be. Yes, sir. Kyra laughed and gave a thumbs up. Mr. Holden seemed satisfied with that. He moved on with the explanation. Derek, your dad also has his hands full today, so he doesn't have time to run you back home.
It's okay.
That's all right, sir. The title Sir got an awkward chuckle out of Cliff, which was cut short when Kyra elbowed him teasingly.
What do you think?
You already said I could borrow your car. Why don't I take all the kids somewhere fun for the afternoon?
Absolutely.
That's fine with me. Just please come back eventually. Sometime today, Kyra. After multiple jokes about being left with no ride, you had to wonder if that actually happened in the past together. Probably. For you, my good sir, I swear. Cross my heart. I really like Kyra's shirt. I like how festive it is. Happy with the promise, Cliff took out his black wallet and offered a $50 bill to Kyra. Hey, hey, hey. Here, in case you need gas or anything else while you're out. Kyra smiled knowingly and accepted the bill without hesitation. Right, because she could have easily done the Jane Jetson thing where she takes the wallet and leaves him with just the $50. But
Thank you.
good on you, Kyra, not pulling that Jane Jetson stuff. Thank you. Cove's dad stuck the wallet into his back pocket while he waved with the free hand. Okay, time for me to jump back into work. Have fun for me. Bye, Dad. Bye. Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye, Mr. Holden. Goodbye, sirs and madams. He left the room with a wink and a flare, disappearing into the employees-only area of the shop. When Mr. Holden was out of sight, Kyra silently strolled over to the counter and carefully placed the $50 bill there. She turned back around and beamed a large smile at you and the others. Come on, gang, let's see if this town has a mall.
Yeah.
Yes! Unable to contain her excitement, Lee actually jumped with joy, while Cove and Derek just grinned. There wasn't a mall in your hometown, but Mr. Holden's store wasn't in Sunset Bird. It might be possible to find a mall out there. You felt pumped. You felt okay about that. You really didn't want to go there. Oh yeah, I'm pumped about going to the mall. Heck yeah! Let's go! She quickly herded the group out of the store into the car.
Go.
As the driver, I get to choose my partner in crime. Naturally, I bestowed the position of shotgun to my baby. Her comment had both Derek and Lee snickering. Cole was for sure embarrassed over the phrasing and blatant favoritism, but he took the seat by his mom without complaint. You decided to stick up for Cove. You decided to jokingly complain at the special treatment. Nah, you were fine with that. You just kept quiet. No, I'll stick up for Cove. Cove's not a baby. He can decide wherever he wants to sit. Cove ran a hand nervously through his hair. He was in disbelief that you disagree with his parent like that. No, I mean, I think by this point, my rapport with his mom is good, so...
My baby.
Vaughn, you're right. Cove's not a baby, but he will always be my baby, a precious baby boy. Kyra turned to Cove. Her awkward expression lit up just by looking at him, and he became even more awkward. I couldn't think of anyone better I'd want to sit with, want sitting shotgun with me, but if he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to. I'll love him no matter what.
That's,
I'm already here. I'll just stay. He still looked like he wanted to crawl out of his own skin. Unfortunately, your attempt to help backfired. Moms could be tricky that way. I'll take the middle seat. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want a window seat. You two can have them. Are you cool with that? You thought it was odd that anyone would give up a window seat. I don't know. I always volunteer to be the one stuck in the middle. I don't know, just to be polite. So I virtually always try to do that by default. Just be in the middle seat because I can take it. You thought it was odd that anyone would give up a window seat, but you knew Derek tried to be especially polite when he was a guest. You nodded. I love how polite Derek is. I love him.
Fantastic.
Good. Sounds like we're all in agreement. Everyone squeezed into the car, buckling in, and Kyra turned the radio on. She set it to a top 40s pop station. Top 40s. You were into it. You did not like it. You asked the radio station could be changed. Top 40s? I mean, whatever. I'm pretty indifferent when it comes to music at that age. So you asked if the radio station could be changed. Top 40s? Oh, but if it's a pop station, yeah, I'm into it. Top 40s pop station? Yeah, I'm into it. Quickly, you recognize the song playing. It was a new one by an artist you were listening to a lot recently.